You know, I really just don't get it. You see all these tech YouTubers and all these creatives taking the M1 MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and even the iMac and pushing it to its limits, seeing what you can do with it in a creative and professional workflow. But nobody has paid as much attention to the M1 iPad Pro. So, oftentimes, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. So today, we're gonna be finding out if you can boost performance on the M1 iPad Pro using thermal cooling pads. But before we get to the thermal cooling pads, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss as we cover your favorite tech and video games. I'm Chris Grant Jr. It's the Granite Geek Show. Okay, so presented here before you today is a 12.9-inch 256 gig M1 iPad Pro with a Paperlike for that matte finish. It's not nano texture, but it's the next best thing. Shout out to Paperlike. So we are going to be using thermal cooling pads on the chassis of the M1 iPad Pro to see if we can get better performance on things like Geekbench. Now, thanks to these images on iFixit's teardown of the M1 iPad Pro, I know that the M1 chip is sitting right about in this area. Also, through my usage of the device, I've noticed that it's most warm right about here. It's the hottest to the touch, so it doubly confirms that. So that's where we're going to be placing these thermal cooling pads. I think we'll probably need about one or two. Let me get the brand for you. So this here is the Oddwit 6-piece mixed thickness. So we have variable thickness here. Thermal conductive silicone pads, soft, safe, simple to apply for SSDs, CPUs, GPUs, and things that are not the metal chassis of the M1 iPad Pro. But all we're looking to see here is a proof of concept that pulling more heat off of the metal chassis, could it improve performance? Let's find out. We're going to be using a couple of alcohol wipes to clean the surface. We'll get it dust-free with this microfiber cloth first. I don't think we'll need the stickers. Okay, so we have this open right here. We'll set this to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off the surface of the iPad Pro, but I'll be holding it vertically like this as dust tends to fall this way. Okay, let's get the other one of the same thickness. We're going to use two of them here, and we're probably going to place them right here, or maybe one here and one maybe right over the Apple logo. All right, we have our other thick cooling pad. We'll put that on my lap. And let's tear open this alcohol pad and give this a good wipe down. We want this to be dust-free, allowing for good adhesion. All right, microfiber cloth. And there we have a clean iPad surface. I mean, I don't work in a chip factory. It's not going to be perfect. The chip is sitting like this, so in order to get the most coverage, we'll put it like that. Alrighty, we've got one down. I think we're like barely covering the Apple logo. So let's put another one down here. And I am that crazy. If this works, I will keep it on here. Okay, and now we're going to run some Geekbench tests with the cooling pad on. Now, what I did beforehand is I got the iPad up to regular operating temperature, and I ran a Geekbench test without the thermal cooling pads. So here were my results with the first test, and now we're going to run it a second time. Now, what I'm going to do, these are double-sided, but I don't want the plastic trapping any heat, so we're going to peel that off, and I hate that because this is going to be a dust and fingerprint magnet. Okay, so I don't even want to run screen recording because I want its full power to be dedicated to this test. So we're going to go ahead into Geekbench, we're going to hit CPU test, and we're going to hit run benchmark. Now, if you really like to get technical, you might be saying, but Chris, your body heat is also contributing to the temperature of the chassis. But there's a control for that, as I did the first test that didn't have the cooling pad. Also with me holding the iPad, so you know, I'm the same temperature as I was back then. Maybe I'm a little hotter. About halfway through here, and we're gonna run this test a couple of times just to make sure the results that we're getting are reliable. I don't want to give you guys any information that's like false. Looks like we're about to finish up here and get our results, so let's see. We've got 1715 and 7245. That doesn't seem too crazy, but let's go ahead and compare it with what we got before. Okay, so this time it looks to be a tiny negligible amount less, about 32 points on the multi-score and only 1 point on the single score. But we're going to do this multiple times to see if we can really get any kind of performance improvement, maybe over the long run. Maybe there's a reason why all these tech YouTubers have not run these kinds of tests, because they maybe don't work. So we got 1706 versus 7301. So let's go ahead and once again compare this to our Geekbench numbers. I think it actually got less on the single core score, but more on the multi-core score, which again looks to be within the margin of error. Now, 3 times the charm. So we're gonna run this one more time, one more dreadful minute and a half, and we're gonna see how our test results are. And here we have our 3 results. The first time with no cooling pad, second time a little bit, basically the same, and the third time a little bit of an improvement in the multi-core, but a drop in the single core. So let's try it one more time. Here we go. I'm a little embarrassed here. So we don't even need to go back over there and look. So we have an even lower score on the single core and less than a 7300 on the multi-core score here. So I guess cooling pads don't help improve the performance of the M1 iPad Pro whatsoever. But you know what? I'm not just gonna take this. We're gonna do something crazy. I'm gonna take all of these cooling pads and we're just gonna go for it all because I don't want to get embarrassed on the internet. Look at that. Look at it. I want to apologize for my behavior. You know, WWDC is coming and I'm just really psyched about it. We're at about a minute 9 and it's like more than 3/4 of the way through the test. It typically takes over a minute and a half, but with about 15 seconds until we're at that point. Okay, 10 seconds now. And it, you know, I wanted to go all out to see if I could improve the performance of the M1 iPad. And it looks like my career is over is what it looks like. 1702 on the single core and 7263 on the multi-core score. The game is not necessarily over. What this does mean is that thermal cooling pads will not improve the performance of your M1 iPad Pro. But what it will do here, is it will not work. So if you want to see that video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss as I cover your favorite tech and video games. Can't wait to see you guys for WWDC. I'll be going live with some of my tech friends on the tech space. Follow me on Twitter right here so we can keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to check if my iPad is broken. I'm Chris Grant Jr. It's the Grant Geek Show.